Hi, and welcome to another edition of Probeline, where we take the opportunity to interview people who would like to represent you, in this case on City Council. And thanks to all the supporters of GrassRoots Community Network who helped make this possible. And today we're going to be talking to Ward Hauenstein, who is a current City Council member and would like to continue to be a City Council member. Hi, Ward.
Hi, Reid. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. And thank you for making time to come and talk with us.
Absolutely.
And I do appreciate that just so everyone knows, Ward specifically asked that we keep our masks on to set a good example and to maintain safety. So I appreciate that. Although I have to say we did set up the studio to be socially distant, so that if people chose to, we could speak without the masks. But
yeah, I think the two most important things for COVID, I think it's an aerosol transmission mostly, and that a mask and physical distancing. I don't like to call it social distancing because I think at these times we need to be socially connected as much as possible.
That's, you know, as a current City Council member, you've really had to deal with some curveballs out of left field with this. I'm fascinated to think, have that kind of puzzle thrown in your lap.
Yeah, one of the biggest problems with masks is you can't see people laughing or smiling.
Yeah.
So I was laughing when you mentioned that because, you know, we had goals that we set for City Council, and within 2 weeks we were in a local disaster emergency and just had to detour on everything and focus entirely on the pandemic that the whole globe is facing, and how to mitigate it, how to reduce city costs to keep within budget, to reduce the budget. I think it's over 1,000 hours a month in staff time just dealing with it. So it's a huge thing, and as we've gone through this now for almost a year, I like to say it's kind of like building an airplane mid-flight. Because nobody knows, nobody in the world has the correct and perfect response. So you have to be nimble and do what you think is best and make adjustments along the way.
What was that like, though? I mean, I think about how our understanding has evolved. You know, and it's sometimes hard to recollect that last spring, how little we knew, you know, compared to now. And I wonder if you can kind of harken back to what that decision making, how you go about as a council making those decisions and deciding, well, do we lock the place down? What do we do?
Well, Governor Polis kind of forced our hand when he shut down all the ski areas in the state. So we went from no big deal to pretty much shut down in a matter of a couple of days. Mm-hmm. And like any decision that's before council, or any decision we make in our lives, we have to take all the available information, try to digest it, and make our decisions based on the best information at hand at the time. If you recall at the beginning, everybody was saying, wash your hands, wash your hands. You go to the grocery store and you Lysol all your packages before you put them away. And now I think it's more accepted that it is an aerosol transmission. So some of those actions that we did a year ago after going to City Market or Clark's Market, we don't probably do now. We're still washing our hands better, but it's, I think it's a process. For me, it's a real process thing, no matter what the issue is. You have to have the right process as you approach it. And with the COVID-19, I mean, there's still a lot of things we don't know. We're still hearing a lot about the lingering effects of COVID-19 on people's health. We don't know how long the vaccine is going to last. So we just have to take the best data that we have, the best information, and apply it to and make the best actions we can. And I'm
Yeah.
real proud. I think the city's done a wonderful job of responding to it.
And how did the city gather its information? How did it?
Well, there was no federal leadership. There was no leadership from the federal government. So we took available information a lot from the state and what we could gather internationally. But I think the lack of a central top-down, and maybe with the Biden administration we're going to have better, but all the states react to them differently. And so one state might distribute their vaccines directly, others to counties, and then the counties have to distribute them. So there's so many different layers of government involved that it's kind of a moving target.
Yeah, looking back, is there something that the city might have done differently?
Like I said, I was really proud with how we reacted. I think we had a $6 million aid and relief program that we had to figure out where does the money come from, how are we going to repay it. We borrowed $2.5 million from the Wheeler Fund, which has to be paid back from the general fund over 10 years. But borrowing from the Wheeler Fund was advantageous to the Wheeler because the city general fund is paying the Wheeler a higher interest rate than they're getting on their return on investments. So it actually benefits the Wheeler. There was no immediate need for the money at the Wheeler. So that's where 2.5 of it came from. There was a debate, and I like to have businesses stand on their own, and I was advocating that it be a loan to businesses and to homeowners for rent, and it turned into a grant that no expectations of return. So that, for me, was a philosophical hurdle to overcome, but I was convinced by other people that, other members of council, that the best thing would be that aspect of it would be grants.
Mm-hmm.
Because of that, and some of the rent relief for commercial was that the landlords had to participate, the city would contribute, and the business would contribute all in thirds. But if your landlord didn't participate, then those businesses were out of luck. So we did establish a rotating, revolving fund that was a low interest loan to those businesses that didn't have a landlord that participated.
How do you see us getting out of this?
Well, I guess the same way that we did a year ago, herd immunity. We're getting there with the vaccine. It's mutating. I think we may have another coronavirus in the future. So it's just going to take time until it's not communicated or transmitted. Our transmission rate has gone from, at the beginning of the year, around 3,000, and now we're down to yesterday, I think, under 200 or around 200. We moved into the yellow category, which is really good for businesses, but we had, I thought, a really busy President's Weekend, so who knows what's going to happen after one incubation period. It might spike again.
Yeah.
So.
And then financially, the city has moved to put a lot of investment in relief. But then that's money that's not available for other things, or it's borrowed money and has to be paid back, as you said. It seems like there's both the health part of it, but then how does the city move forward financially with this?
Well, as I said, we had to pay back the loan from the general fund, which comes from taxes, which means that we really are going to have to tighten our belts for 10 years to pay that $2.5 million back with interest to the Wheeler Fund. So the Wheeler Fund is made whole. But it is going to require some ratcheting back, mostly in capital projects, I would say. At the beginning of this, the city manager instructed the departments to cut back 8%. And so they, I think, have done a wonderful job. I think our tax revenues are off 6% for the year. The two largest industries, the industry hit the most is the lodging, and they're off by 24%, I think, for the year. And restaurants are off about 12%. And interesting, liquor sales are up. Sales tax revenues are up. And for cars, I didn't even know you could buy a car in Aspen, but sales tax revenue from automobiles is way up as well.
Yeah, it's funny how some of that works sometimes. It's unequal.
Yeah. And another real surprise is the crazy hot real estate market. That the Wheeler and housing RETs are up by, real estate transfer taxes are up by over 100% from previous year.
Yeah, I think, well, I don't know. It seems like very few people saw that coming, but
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you get into council, if I can take a little left turn here? What made you get off the couch and run?
I've been politically active, I think, my whole life, politically engaged. I ran for, what was it? Student council at the University of Minnesota. Was involved in anti-war protests for Vietnam, advocated for the impeachment of Richard Nixon. My first act of civil disobedience was drinking out of a colored-only water fountain when I was in second grade in the train station in Atlanta, Georgia. So there's always been a seed of political engagement in me. When I moved to Aspen in 1976, I eventually started monitoring what was going on, and just in my DNA is involvement. I've been involved in some issues not on city council, and I just increasingly felt that I could have my best impact at being on council and helping form policy instead of reacting to it.
So what do you think gave you the spark to be engaged?
I just think it was born in me.
Yeah.
And just a need. And as you get older, you find that you have a bit more time, and that you want to serve. There's Aldous Huxley wrote a book back in the 50s called The Perennial Philosophy, where he analyzes 5 different attributes of world faith traditions, and all of them contain service. That the last element of all of these faith traditions throughout the world are service and giving back and being contributing to the betterment of humankind. And as we get older, like the Buddhists think that your householder, when you're younger, you're taking care of your household, and then the forester stage, that you're really in a more contemplative and service phase of your life, and I'm in that now. I was telling somebody, I think I was emailing Skippy, one of my council colleagues, that 40 years ago, I looked up to and revered the old timers for their life experience and what they've done for the town. And then all of a sudden I realized I am the old timer. And it just creeps up on you if you don't pay attention. Even if you do pay attention, if you live long enough, you're going to be an old timer.
Well, yes, that's true. Well, I admire that, and it sounds very a kind of spiritual bend to it.
I'm a spiritual person. I'm not a religious person, but I do feel that philosophy, religion, and politics, for me, they all blend in together. I have a quote that I've said a number of times at the council tables from Thomas Jefferson in the election of 1800. He said that, "I've never known a difference in opinion in religion, philosophy, or politics to withdraw from a friend." So to be able to have differences of opinions And that's a good philosophy to have. But I will remind people that after the 1800 election, John Adams never went to Jefferson's inauguration.
Yes.
And John Adams and Thomas Jefferson didn't communicate or speak for 8 years. So these quotes are good, but you have to put them in context and try to live with them.
Yeah, that's true. We're all pretty imperfect in the way we go forward.
Yeah.
And have you enjoyed the 2 years on council?
Yeah, I've been in council now for 3.5 years. I really have. It's the first couple of years you just really have to get the feel for things, and as you get into your second, now I'm in my second council because we had an election 2 years ago.
Right.
It takes a while to adjust to the new people on council, and then like we had Skippy, Tori, and Rachel were new to council. Ann and I remain, and it takes a while to get the feel for how the process works. When I first got on council, I realized that when you're not on council and you're engaged from the outside, you can pick your issues. You can just really focus on one issue that really interests you or that you want to dedicate your energies to. And when you're on council, you have to do that same energy for every issue that comes before you. And my second 2 years now, I've been serving on a lot of the boards, citizen boards, RAFTA, CORE, Aspen Snowmass Nordic Council, Sister Cities, Central Core Lodging Commission, the Homeless Coalition. All of those just take a lot of time and commitment and energy as well.
Yeah, it really would. And you're so right that you can be an advocate for a particular thing that maybe gets you off the couch, but there is a whole spectrum of issues that have to be dealt with, and people.
Yeah. Some of them really pique your interest more than others, but you still have to give them your full attention.
Do you have some favorite issues?
Well, the favorite thing I want to do is get out of the COVID protocols. I want to get back to a new sense of normalcy. Workforce housing has always been, when I moved to town there was no workforce housing. And the administration of the program and construction of particularly the lumber yard as that moves forward. When I got on council, lumber yard had been sitting there as land banked, and we've been able to get it as a point of discussion, and we're almost through the conceptual phase. We have to go to schematic designs and building permits, and there's some more steps to go, but I really am happy with moving that project forward.
That's great. What brought you to town in '76?
Skiing,
Yeah.
the mountains. I lived in Minnesota and had been coming to Colorado for a number of years. And every time I went back to Minnesota, it was harder and harder. And the last time I went back, I said, this is the last time I'm coming back to Minnesota. So I'd only been to Aspen once before. I'd spent time in Vail and Steamboat Springs, but I really loved Aspen. And got here back in the CB radio days, got into Pickens County and asked for housing, and was just totally shocked that a studio apartment costs more than a two-bedroom half of a duplex in Minneapolis.
Mm-hmm.
And
So,
that I mean, we're still facing that
Oh, yeah.
huge housing costs.
so you came here to ski, but then you've built a life here.
Funny how that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was really fortunate enough to meet my wife in the Belmont and Lift line, and I've been married for over 40 years. We have 2 grown children. One of them is a school counselor in Switzerland, and the other is an environmental engineer in Truckee, California, who works for a company in Oakland and does a lot of work with energy efficiency building codes for the state of California.
Wonderful.
And we have one granddaughter who's, don't get me going. I'll pull up my phone and start showing you pictures. But she's just over 2 years old now, and just a real joy.
And she's in Truckee?
She is, yeah. We FaceTime and WeChat often, several
Wonderful.
times a week.
And are you retired?
Semi-retired.
What did you do?
Well,
Or what do you do?
the first 9 years I was in town, I was in retail. I got involved in worked in a ski shop. For those of you who remember Sport House Lindner to start with, and then Gondola Ski Shop, and then I went to Sabatini's and worked 7 years at Sabatini's, and started the bicycle shop at Sabatini's and ran that for the first 7 years it was in existence. And I just had a real knack or love for computers. My first one was a Commodore 64. I did the inventory for Sabatini's bike shop on a Commodore 64. And this is really in personal computer infancy. Got into the PC realm before there were even hard drives and you had dual floppy. So I've been in the IT business since then. Really specialized in networking. Before networking was a thing. Was a Novell certified reseller, and then Novell kind of went away and everything became Microsoft Networks, and then we've gotten so much so that so much stuff is in the cloud that technology it's Alvin Toffler wrote a book, Future Shock, that change is going faster than we can really adapt to, and I think that's true.
Yeah. And you still do some IT work? Or?
I do, yeah. And I really do enjoy it. It's my my left brain stuff. City council is the left-right brain. In my spiritual stuff is my right brain. But I find it, like I said, that the philosophy, religion, and spirituality, or spirituality, politics, those just all blend together for me.
That's fascinating. It's interesting to hear someone talk about right brain, left brain, kind of ways of approaching things, and the intuitive and precise. And IT, to me, always seems so precise. And
Yeah.
yet, oftentimes, you have to deal with the vagaries of what humans want and do to move forward.
Well, in city council, I find just about every issue is a balancing act. COVID-19, I've always, if you wear a mask, it's a political statement. For me, it was never political, it was always public health. So I've always, on all of my approaches, I was the first one to introduce masks. Glenwood Springs had them, and we got them in Aspen. I was the first one to introduce a mandatory mask zone. Public health is more important to me. It does trump the local economy to a degree, but you can't shut down the town without having a realization of what it does to the rest, to people's individual lives, to their livelihood, to their mental health. All of those things just, so you have to balance it and decide how far you can go and how soon you make adjustments the other way. And if things start going south, you have to be nimble enough to make changes. You have to be decisive. If you're not decisive, nothing gets done.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Well, I guess I asked you about what council might do differently, looking back on it, but what do you think the next kind of steps are for managing COVID going forward?
There's that making the airplane mid-flight. I think as we get towards herd immunity that we can make some adjustments, that we will open up socially. I think it would really be nice to get the Wheeler Opera House open again. Artists are just chomping at the bit. They want to express themselves. The Wheeler has been dark for over a year. Theaters across the country are dark. The ISIS is dark. People want to go in and to have the social interactions, even the masks, which I advocated for. I hate them. I think that they're like glasses fogging devices. And so as soon as I put the mask on, I take my glasses off. But it's something that's necessary for the times, and it's an adjustment we have to make, I think, for public health. Yeah, getting the social aspects of the town again so we can hug each other, smile at each other, go to gatherings, go out to dinner, We've recently went into a 50% in restaurant dining, which is great for the restaurant industry. They were down December, I think, 12% in their sales tax revenue, and lodging was double that. So it really hurts the economy and individuals when you can't have your full functioning, sustainable economy.
Yeah, it really does. But that's the balancing act, isn't it, of how do you keep people safe while keeping the economy moving?
Yeah, the libertarian aspect, or the libertarian view, is that stay away from my life. Don't do anything. Wearing a mask is a liberty that I'm being deprived of, and if I'm wearing a mask, I'm allowing myself to be controlled by government. If we had that same attitude back when the Cuyahoga River was burning, we wouldn't have the Clean Water Act, or we wouldn't have Clean Air Act. Same philosophy I applied when we did anti-vaping and anti-flavored tobacco, that it might be considered by some to be governmental overreach, but when public health and safety is concerned, I'm going to err on the side of public health and safety and the environment.
Good. We're almost done here. I want to quickly give you the opportunity. Is there anything that you want to quickly say that I failed to hit on, or?
Well, I'd just like to appeal to people to make sure that you vote. I hope that you'll return me for a final 4 years on City Council. I've given it my heart and soul. I'm totally prepared when we go to meetings, and I listen, and I can compromise, and I can live with when issues go the other way. I'm a team player, and I agree that in democracy, you don't always get what you want. But I really want everybody to vote for me so I can serve a final 4 years on City Council.
Thank you, Ward.
Thank you, Reid.
And thank you for watching another episode of Probeline. We, of course, are not advocating for any particular candidate, but are really welcome and grateful to have the opportunity to have you meet all those who are running for these seats. Thank you.
Thank you, Reid.